What's up guys, Brad here from Piney Grove Homestead, and for those of you that watch our channel regularly, you know that I'm out on our 1,200 acre hunting lease about 2.5 hours east of Piney Grove. For those of you new to the channel, we have 20 acres in North Florida that we're developing into a homestead, but we also have 1,200 acres that I'm on a hunting lease with 3 of my Air Force friends, and I spend a lot of time out here as well. In fact, this property was probably the catalyst for us buying Piney Grove, because we live in a subdivision close to our jobs, and we got on this property here to recreate, to hunt, and also run our dogs. We have a pond on this property, you know, shoot our guns, things like that. And that led us to buying a tractor and buying an ATV, and we realized that we like that lifestyle, we like that country life, we like having land and open space. But this hunting property is probably the reason that we bought Piney Grove. But what we're doing today is prepping our food plots for planting. So we put out food plots later here in North Florida because we're in Florida, it's warmer. We're in the south and it doesn't get cooler until later in the winter, and also because our rut is in February and most people's rut across the United States is in November. So they were prepping a couple months ago and we're just prepping now. But we have a 3-step proven process for food plotting. Number 1, we mow. Number 2, we spray. And then number 3, we plant. And we've detailed all that in a food plot playlist, which I'll link up here. But we repeat that every year. But this year we added another step to that process, and that's lime. So if you missed that video, I'll link that one up here as well. But don't go watch those videos until you watch this one. But you apply lime to raise the pH. So we put out 9 tons of lime last weekend, and we mowed last weekend as well. So it's been a week, we've got some rain, and the grasses are starting to come up, and these are not grasses that we want. These are undesirable weeds and grasses. We want to burn them off with herbicide so that when we come in and plant in a couple weeks, we'll have just burnt down grasses. We'll have a nice clean seed bed when we till that in, and it'll add organic matter to our soil. So that's what we're doing today. We're going to spray with our 15-gallon ATV sprayer, and we're also going to check game cams. I just put them out last week, and I'll share any photos that I get from them that are interesting. If you don't see any photos in this video, that means there was nothing interesting. We don't have any food for them to eat in the food plot yet, so they probably won't be visiting the food plots regularly, but if I have pictures, I'll link them. Let's go on the food plot and show you what we're going to be burning off here. Okay, so as I mentioned, we got limed last week, and hopefully the camera picks it up, but you'll see all the white specks of lime there. So the lime is starting to break down a little bit because we got some rain this week, but I just heard acorns dropping, and that's just such a cool sound. The deer love acorns, and it's just cool to hear them dropping on the ground here because you know the deer are going to be coming by soon to scoop them up. But I'm going to hold the camera here on the ground so you can see all the green ground cover, and none of that is good food for the deer. So we want to burn all that off with a herbicide. So the reason we burn it off is because if we try to till that right now with the thatch from mowing and also that green grass there, it's just going to be real tough for the tiller to work that up good. So by burning that off, we reduce the amount of weeds that we have, we reduce the amount of weeds for next year, and we make it easier to till, and also we add organic matter to the soil. That's lime right there. Some of it comes out of the truck in big chunks. So every granule of that needs to touch a granule of soil so that it'll raise the pH of the soil. All right, so we're going to go at a rate of 1 quart per acre. I've got 4, 5, 6 quarts or so of, well, it's Glide, it's generic Roundup. This one's 53.8% and this one's 41%. And funny thing is, I owe some payback to one of my friends for mowing my plot. So I told him I'd spray his plot, but he bought me this Glide last year when I sprayed his plot. So now I'm going to be using his Glide back on his plot. So I've got my herbicide, and I've also got about 80 to 100 gallons of water. I figure we're going to put out 4 to 6 tanks today because that's how much Glide I have, and I'm going to need a tank full or 2 to rinse out the sprayer. So that was part of the process this morning, was loading up all this water. It's the hardest part of spraying, is getting enough water to the property when you don't have running water. One thing that amazes me is how quickly Mother Nature tries to take back her land. I just mowed this last week and I had it mowed tight, but these grasses are trying to come back. Now the hardest thing about spraying is trying to keep that 5-foot distance so you don't spray where you sprayed last time. So the last thing I do when I make my turn at the end is look back over my shoulder and try and pick out a reference point on the other side of the pot and know that I have to come over 5 feet from that. All right guys, we're on pot number 2. Okay, I think I got enough spray for one more pass. Then I'm gonna have to go mix up another tank. Right now would be a good time to click that like button if you like the video so far. All right, headed to the next plot. I'm gonna leave it running because I got that pump circulating for the chemicals that are in the tank, but it's about a mile down the road. Let's go to T-cell. All right guys, we made it over to T-cell. Got a 1 acre plot here I gotta spray. And then after that, I'm gonna take you to a plot called Stumpy, which is my friend's plot, and I'll have a story for you there. But first, let me put this camera on time lapse and get this plot sprayed. Okay, T-cell's all sprayed, and the reason that we spray every year, we put clover and chicory down. Clover will actually last 4 or 5 years in the right soil and the right climate, but here in Florida, it burns up in about August, well, July, August time frame, when it gets a little dry and we have the intense heat, it'll burn up and it won't come back, and then the weeds take over. We haven't been able to grow a persistent or a consistent clover crop that will stay, say, for 4 or 5 years. And that's the way you want to do it, right? You want to plant once and not have to do anything but mow for 4 or 5 years. But we found if we don't replant the clover, then it'll just be a weedy mess. So we just start from baseline every year. But let's head over to Stumpy, and I'll tell you a story over at Stumpy.
What's next? I'm tired of feeling like a small fish in a big pond. I think I'll go back where I came from, where everybody knows my name. My friends are still the same. I guess the slow life.
Okay guys, we're at Stumpy, and Stumpy is the scene of a crime. So last year when Rob got on this lease, and Rob's a good friend of mine, we retired from the Air Force together, and he wanted to join us on the lease here, and we said, look man, we're in the herd management, and we keep this land as fertile as we can. We know it's poor soil, but you gotta lime. It hasn't been limed in many years. So this was planted pines. They came in here and logged it, and there was big stumps in here, and the previous guy on the lease had dug out all those stumps. He had hired an excavator and dug out all those stumps. And that's why it's called Stumpy, although there is still 1 or 2 left that the guy missed. But anyway, Rob, if Rob was here, I'd say it, but Rob's a cheap guy, and it's not cheap to do food plotting. It's not cheap to be on a hunting lease. And we really had our doubts whether Rob would actually lime this. So we're like, Rob, you gotta lime it, you gotta lime it. One weekend, he said he was gonna get some lime. We didn't really believe him. And because it's kind of tough to get lime. You got to drive an hour and get this big lime buggy. It's got tires as tall as me on it. You got to tow 3 tons of lime, 35 miles an hour, 60 some miles, come here, spread it out, tow it back. It's a whole day event. Now I got a lime truck last weekend and they came and spread, but this plot's too wet. They won't spread a food plot that's this wet. We've gotten lime trucks stuck before, and they're on to us. They're not going to come out here with a big lime truck if it's wet. So we got to promise them we'll keep them on the high ground. So anyhow, I called Rob that morning, and I'm like, hey man, how's the lime going? And he's like, I'm stuck. And I didn't think much of it. I thought it was dry enough out here to tow the lime buggy with the truck. But I was coming out here anyway, so I came out here, and right there on the other side of the feeder pole, and we got a whole video on it. We actually have 2 videos on it. Rob with his 3/4 ton diesel truck was stuck. And so I had talked to someone with a jacked up F-150 outside the road here. Actually, it's an F-250 diesel. Big tires on it, just looked like a mud machine. So he followed me in here and he tried to pull Rob out and he got stuck and his winch was broken. So then he turned his truck around, got his winch working. We pulled Rob out with his truck and we couldn't do anything with the line buggy. So Rob went home an hour each way, got his tractor, came out here, and we worked for 3 or 4 hours and we could barely move the line buggy. So the next day, my other friend with his Kubota came out here and we hooked the Kubota to the Mahindra to the line buggy. We got it unstuck and then we limed this plot. But it was a 2-day ordeal, and Rob was trying to do what we asked him to do, and he did it. Rob has not yet spread lime again. I think he's a little gun shy. He has one more plot that he has to lime. But that's what happens out here on our property. We've got to get this limed, and we got to go through a lot of hassle to make it happen. But I'm going to get on the 4-wheeler. I promised him I'd spray this, so I'm going to spray this, and then we're going to go to Pond, which is his second plot. It's a big 1-acre plot, and we're going to spray that one, and then we'll be all done with this step of our food plotting process. All right, guys, I got Stumpy all done, and I don't know if the camera picked it up, but that grass was really tall, 18 inches or so. And in addition to that, there was a lot of thatch. So even though this herbicide is going to burn that grass off, Rob's got a lot more work to do. He needs to mow that at least once, if not twice more, and really chop that up before he'll be able to till it with a tiller or a disc harrow and plant his food plot for this fall. I've got one more plot to do. It's called Pond, but I'm gonna go ahead and wrap up this video. You've seen me run around in circles with this ATV long enough. If you enjoyed today's video, please click that like button down below, subscribe if you haven't already, and also leave us a comment. We'd love to hear from you. But otherwise, that's all I've got. So until the next one, you all take care out there, and remember, life is short, tractor hard.
It's all right by me.